The Henry Sheldon Museum in Middlebury, Vermont is pleased to introduce Warren Kimble, an all-American artist.
Art is a total of one's experiences, and your experiences and mine are vastly different. So what I did, it may look like a flag, but to them, they look at it and they may see a flag that was someplace else or some other meaning that they have from it. So I don't have to explain too much. It isn't mine. It now becomes their painting. None of my folk art paintings depict a time in them, really, because they're done on the old wood. The colors have a little antiquated feel to them, but there's nothing in them that say old. There are no carriages. There are no costumes in them. They could be yesterday, they could be 100 years ago, or they could be today. And I think that that has an appeal. I like simple. Simple is the hardest thing to do in art. Artists we always overdo everything, you know, when you get to it, oh my God, I shouldn't have put that in, and da 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 da. So the hardest thing to do is to stop. And I think sometime along the way I learned to stop. And that, I think, is why they're simple and direct. I've always been in the antiques business for years, and so I still paint on the old boards because they're tabletops or they're old breadboards or old signs that already have texture on them. But when I see the board, I know what I want to paint on it. Inspiration for the folk art comes from here, where we live, what we see all around us: chickens, cows, fences, houses, trees. All of those things are incorporated, and also the flag. That doesn't necessarily have the right number of stripes or stars, but it's the influence and the design of it that interests me. We live in a place that's very special, and to change the seasons, the change of clothes is fun. We can't wait till the next one. And you can complain about the last one like crazy, but you can't wait for the next one. In my folk art paintings, there aren't many doors in the houses that I paint. There are lots of windows, because I think it creates a mystery. What's going on inside? What's going on outside? All of those things in life happen through windows. It's whimsical. It's not silly, I don't think. It makes people smile. The animals are reminiscent of the 1840s English paintings where they made the cows and the pigs and everything. They fattened them up so much that the heads looked little and the legs looked little, so I just exaggerated a little bit more. The simplicity is really an abstraction. The Sun series is primarily done on new boards or on canvas. Gesso is an undercoat that's used on canvas. It's a bit thick, it's almost creamy. So I put it on very thick. It's treated almost like icing a cake. The sun does wonderful things for our heads, for our growth in the food we eat. It's just a happy thing. The Widows of War was created in 2002. I was at the Vermont Studio Center. It was the beginning of the Iraq War. I had purchased a mannequin, a dressmaker's mannequin, an old one. But I came back from dinner one night and I was listening to the radio and heard that 2 men had been killed in Iraq. And it was sitting in front of the window, and I thought of it as the woman being left home alone. So I produced in that month about maybe 20 pieces. It's about the tragedy of war, any war. People took away from that a lot more than I had ever envisioned, and that has really given me great pleasure and meaning. When I first moved to Vermont, I was going to be an artist, and then I started teaching again. And when you teach, you learn a lot from kids, and you experiment and try something and see how it works. So I'm always collecting stuff and seeing how I can put it together and make something out of it. All kinds of wooden things. I love wood. Porch balustrades. And I've collected those by going to antique shops and auctions and so forth, and pieces of things. Well, I just started doing what I call assemblages in boxes. I love architecture. And a lot of the boxes, the assemblages in the boxes, they're really old drawers. A lot of them are architectural. They remind me of the city, the buildings, the large structures. I did a whole series on playing cards, kings and queens, and there have been some pretty weird things that kings and queens have done in history and still do, I guess. There's one over here that says all the king's men, and they're clothespins. And then the king's over here, because he's a big deal, you know, with all the men. There are 2 shoe lasts that were used to make shoes. They're wooden. I have a picture, it's an old tin type, but it looks queen-like, so I called it that because it was fun. You wouldn't want to be in her shoes because she's had a heck of a life, right? Good and not so good. So just fun stuff like that. Well, everybody draws a painting of their face for self-portrait, right? And I just thought, this is an apron I wear all day. It's my colors, it's me. There's a brush in it that was given to me by a good friend who was an artist. It's kind of silly maybe, but it's really fun. Fun is a very important thing in my life. But if it isn't enjoyable or fun to you, it probably isn't going to be extremely successful. People ask me, what's your favorite painting? And I always say the next one, or the next project you're going to do. It's the next one, because the others are done. If you get writer's block, what does a writer do? I don't know, but I know what an artist does. You hit the road. You go to a gallery, a museum, you go and experience. That inspires you, whether you know it or not. I think that's the joy of doing this, is finding the next thing to do. Sheldon Museum, they have done a fabulous job. And my point in being here is to bring more people into this museum.
A rooster, is that funny? Yeah.
Look at rooster.
There's another rooster, yeah.
Right there.
Right over there. It's like a
That's a
houseboat.
boat and a brush for a hat.
It's a fabulous place.